How's it going, man? Thanks for carving out the time.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's thanks for having me on.
So if someone would have asked me, I don't know, 6 months ago, who Brent Booker was, I would have been able to say he's the general president of LiUNA. And if they would have asked me what you looked like, I would have had no idea. I could have ran into you in a sidewalk and I would have had no clue who you were. You, among other members of leadership of LiUNA, have seemed to be like really visible on social media, communicating with members through social media. Is that something that you are intentionally doing? Is that like an intentional effort?
That is absolutely intentional. And we're trying to I mean, for me personally and organizationally, I mean, that's a way to connect with the membership, right? And a lot of people have social media channels and you can send text messages and emails. And I've found that I grab my cell phone, when an issue happens, record myself and talk to them. I spent a lot of time on job sites in the fall, and listened and talked and learned from a lot of members. And was like, hey, man, just go talk to your cell phone like you're talking to a member on a job site. And we're starting to catch a little bit of fire with that and getting out there. And look, we're still doing statements. We're still doing the things that we traditionally communicated with, but have found that that is a tool in which we're reaching a lot of rank and file members. So yeah, it's intentional and we're trying it, and it seems to be working so far.
Yeah, it feels really transparent, and it is getting a lot of information. I think to me personally, and I'm sure countless other members.
That's
Uh,
the idea.
yeah. So how's it feel to be the general president of LiUNA?
I mean, it's amazing. It's an opportunity of a lifetime. It's crazy that that's my title. Being in this union literally my whole life, and there's days where I'm just like, hey, that's my name on the bottom of that letter. So it's overwhelming, but it's also really good. And I think that it's something that you got to forget about titles. And I tell people, I met with a member last week. I was in San Antonio, and he was just like, something about making a decision, and it's just do the right thing. We all signed up to help people, and if you do the right thing, if you keep those two things at the top of your decision tree, the job title doesn't matter. It's just a matter of the reach and the effectiveness and who you can reach and who you can't. And I'm really fortunate and really lucky that I have the title that I have, because I do feel like we're able to reach not only our members but working people in general. So an honor of a lifetime, but it's still plenty of pinch me moments.
Yeah, you're pretty young too. How did how did this come to be that you got the title?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you calling me young. There's days that I don't always feel as young. I just turned 50 earlier this year. So, I started and my path is a little bit different. Everybody has their own path into the trades, into the labors, into their career path, and into their union. Mine, I started at headquarters when I was really young. And I think I was 26 when I started here in the construction department, and shut up and listened the first couple of years, and had some really good mentors and peers that put me under their wing and said, hey, we got you, kid, and we're going to teach you how agreements work, how jurisdiction works, how working with other trades work. And worked my way up here in this organization through the construction department, and then went to the building trades in 2012, and I was elected secretary treasurer of the National Building Trades, so the number two guy at the National Building Trades, and stayed there for a little over 10 years. And I really learned in that role, meeting at the CEO level, at the general president level, and doing some big time negotiations on big mega projects. So that was cool. And then had the opportunity to come back here when Terry had announced his retirement. He and I had talked and about the possibility or the opportunity for me to quite literally come back home, and I did it. So that's a really long-winded way of saying put your head down, shut up, listen, go to work every day. And if you do that, good things happen to good people, and keep that, helping people and doing the right thing, and make sure I, am responsive and to, membership first and foremost. When there's somebody that needs something on a job site, whether it's negotiating an agreement, settling a grievance, protecting our jurisdiction, that's keep your eye on that, and good things happen.
Yeah, shut up and listen is definitely advice I've heard before.
Yeah.
um,
It's the best advice I got. That, and always return someone's phone call. If somebody reaches out to you, give them the courtesy to reach back out to them.
yeah, great advice. Um, so getting back to the leadership's intentional, going after this presence on social media. Does that have anything to do with the 2024 election?
Yeah, it does. And look, I spent a bunch of time in the fall, right? And I went in battleground states to talk to our members, to educate, inform, and shut up and listen to them and see where they were at and what they wanted. And then also, talk to them about what was at stake in this election. And, getting out on a job site, that's the best day I've got of the year. If I'm putting on my boots and jeans and a hard hat and a vest and going out there and talking to our members and hearing what they have to say, that's what really started this. When we have this thing, right now with the start in the Midwest region, a lot of other people have picked it up, is just get out of the damn truck. Whether you're the general president or an organizer or a business agent and every, position in between, get out of your truck and go talk to people, go talk to members, go talk to future members. So getting out there, talking to people, listening to people, understanding that in those conversations, there was an information gap of what was, what we were doing, who we were endorsing, why we were endorsing them, the infrastructure bill, the chips and science bill, the IRA, all, bullshit Washington terms. What it really went down to was jobs and educating and informing and talking to and listening to our members about the jobs, realizing that, hey, there is a gap of what's real and what's not. And like I said, just grabbing that cell phone and being able to talk and reach, 10, 15, 20,000 people via social media, with a 30-second, minute and a half clip. Yeah, it's very intentional post-election to do that, just to give them, here's the facts. It's not my opinion. Here's, as I see it, here's why I'm making the decisions I'm making. Here's who I'm talking to, and here's why we're doing it. So it's been an effective tool that we're going to continue using and continue to try to. I can't hit every job site in the country, but I can reach a lot of people in a short amount of time, via a direct-to-camera video and social media.
Well, I think you're doing a great job of communicating. I've noticed in your past couple of videos, you've started with, we have good news and bad news, or this is what I like, this is what I don't like. And I think that's a really effective tool for communicating to people, especially this administration, right? Like you have these people that are just like diehard Trumpers, and they don't want to hear anything that opposes it. And so when you start out by saying like, I like no tax on overtime, but this is what I don't like. What was the last thing you said? I forgot. But yeah, I've noticed it a couple times, and I think it's a pretty effective tool.
It's just the facts, and people don't have time. They can get opinions anywhere. We're looking just for facts, right? And we've done, I don't know, close to a dozen focus groups since the beginning of the year. We've done polling of our members. We've gotten out of our damn trucks and talked to members to figure out what they want and what they want to hear and who they want to hear from. And it's really, effective. It's been an effective communication tool for me personally to be like, all right, I've seen the results of these focus groups. I see where our members are at. Now, how do we better our communication? Because number one, our members love this union. Number two, we got the best members in the world. Like the who laborers are, the different backgrounds they come from, their stories, everything they're at. That's really what's driving this. And I don't want to just report bad news. When there's good news, I want to be able to be, call a ball and a strike. And there's good things that have come. And what the current administration has done on reinforcing the last administration's executive order on PLAs. That's a good thing.
That's a
we
very
should
good
talk
thing.
about it. What the Senate's going to vote on tonight or tomorrow, Yeah, people are going to like no taxes on overtime. There's some nuance there,
Mhm.
but you don't get overtime if you don't have a job. And I'm also communicating there that there's some provisions in this reconciliation bill that's going to cost tens of thousands of our members, our future members, current, construction workers planted in the middle class are going to lose their job because of politics. So I think it's incumbent upon us to communicate that and make sure that people understand, hey, man, I'm not here to talk about 30 other things in that bill that don't have a direct impact on this union or our membership. But I am going to talk about and yell from the mountaintops anything that good happens politically or anything bad happens politically. And I just think that's my responsibility, and we're going to continue to do it.
And some of those things you talk about them pulling is the the energy, right? The energy infrastructure, the windmills and the solar.
Right.
Now, it seems like a really strange time to pull back from energy infrastructure because it seems like there's a really high demand for energy, especially with just like these AI companies and these nuclear facilities that are running them. What's the reasoning behind pulling back on the infrastructure to support more energy when we need more energy? And us as consumers are really feeling the demand. I know in New Jersey, I don't know about in Washington D.C. or wherever you live, but I know in New Jersey, I mean, my electric bill is like through the roof.
Yeah, and LiUNA has been an all of the above energy union, for decades. We want more solar, we want more pipelines, we want more natural gas, we want more coal, we want more wind, offshore wind, solar. And what this bill does is takes out the tax credits that were established in the IRA passed in 2022, which allows a owner developer contractor to get money from the federal government, taxpayer money, by bringing megawatts of energy into the grid and using solar and wind. It's these tax credits and that piece of legislation. I'm getting technical and wonky, but let me just try to break it down,
That's okay.
quickly and
Yeah.
easily. In the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, with the last administration, which has created middle class jobs, good union jobs, because it required registered apprentices, it required the use of prevailing wages, and encouraged the use of a project labor agreement. So those three things allowed the solar industry to really, literally on its head, turn from a predominantly non-union industry into a union industry. And I would go, last fall and shake hands with and meet members and particularly in Michigan and Wisconsin who are building this uh, hundreds, if not thousands of megawatts of solar fields, and creating hundreds of new apprentices, people who were given a shot from that local community as a result of a piece of legislation. And it was positive. We brought in thousands of new members and created tens of thousands of jobs for our members because of this production tax credit, that allowed developers to get some money by putting this power onto the grid. And we need more power on the grid. We need more baseload. We need more things to fuel, whether it's data centers or just our everyday use of power. Our energy infrastructure is critically important. So if the Senate passes, which it looks like it will, what the House passed was that it got rid of all production tax credit, PTCs and ITCs, industry tax credit, production tax credit, if you hadn't started construction in the next 60 days. The Senate version, some could argue, is worse. Some could argue it's better, but ultimately, within a year or two, it's going to get rid of all of these incentives to build offshore wind, and solar, which is going to cost jobs. And that's what we're advocating for. There's some studies over like 1 million construction jobs, over 3 billion work hours that are lost. And those aren't made up numbers. That's from the congressional report, right? So I'm getting wonky. I'm getting technical. Let me boil it down. This sucks. Like they are taking away jobs from our members to fund, tax incentives for millionaires and billionaires. So the paychecks of our members are going to be taken away, while millionaires and billionaires are going to get deeper and bigger tax cuts. They don't need them, but our members need their jobs, and none of our members, doesn't matter who they voted for, nobody voted to lose their job. And when you see all of the last 10 or 15 years, the outrage and our union's outrage over the cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline, this is hundreds of times more jobs that are going to be lost as a result of what the Senate's about ready to do on this reconciliation bill compared to how many jobs we actually lost on Keystone XL. Now, we fought for every job on Keystone XL, but just put that in perspective, as everybody has used Keystone XL as a political tool to weaponize Democrats versus Republicans, working people versus, blue collar versus white collar. This bill is going to decimate, blue collar workers, our union members, especially when you compare it to all of the outrage and all the jobs that was actually lost on Keystone.
Mm-hmm. Have you looked into fighting for alternative forms of energy? Like I interviewed the director of engineering for a major energy company in New Jersey, and he was saying that they're looking into using natural hydrogen. They're basically going to cut natural gas with natural hydrogen. And if you look at Hawaii's doing that right now. I think they're 20% hydrogen, 80% gas. And that seems to be a pretty reasonable idea. We're sitting on trillions and trillions of gallons of water that could be easily, transferred into natural hydrogen, and we could use that to go into the pipelines. Now, if it's 20% or less, I looked into it. If it's 20% or less, we don't have to change infrastructure. But if you use 25% natural hydrogen or 30% natural hydrogen, which they do in the UK, and other countries have done pilot programs for this, and it's been wildly successful. But because the hydrogen is so much smaller than the gas, you have to change the infrastructure to keep it safe. And that sounds like something that could create a hell of a lot of jobs.
Yeah, and contemplated, it's been kind of a political football going back and forth on this bill between the House and the Senate, is these hydrogen hubs. These hydrogen hubs were created under the IRA, under the Biden administration. That the final rulemaking just came out at the end of last year, early this year. They've been put on hold. They've been started. They've been stopped. The House version of the bill got rid of funding for hydrogen hubs. The Senate version brought it back in, then amended to take out. Now, I think today, as we talk tonight, it's going to be, it's amended to allow for the continuation of the development of these hydrogen hubs, which is what you said. Mm-hmm. We're pulling hydrogen, we're pipelining it out. We're creating jobs in these hubs, but there's going to be a bunch of pipelines coming in, a bunch of pipelines coming out, processing facilities, and then using hydrogen and a whole bunch of different life forms that, quite frankly, I don't understand. So, but I do know that it's going to create a bunch of jobs. We're for it. That's why I say we're all of the above. Small modular reactors, SMRs, in the nuclear world. We're for that. I think that's an emerging technology that, in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see more and more of those come online, which is going to be, create a bunch of jobs for our members. So we advocate for that. We advocate for every industry where we have a laborer working. And that's why I'm so vocal and adamant about these, jobs that this Senate is going to take away from this organization and our members. So, we're for hydrogen. We're for hydrogen hubs. We're for nuclear. We're not for having our jobs taken away. And that's what's getting ready to happen.
Mm-hmm. So we're talking about this energy and this need for energy. And a lot of it is resulting in these billion-dollar industries, corporations using just a massive amount of energy to power this AI and create better AI and blah, 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 which doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. But getting into that AI conversation, what are we going to do? You see in Houston, Texas, that they have automated round trips for, freight is being moved on 18-wheelers round trip in Houston to Austin. You see little things like the tiny surveyor. I don't know if you've seen that. It's just like a little robot that puts lines in the road, and it's like a tiny little survey. We're actually going to talk to a national sales rep for them next week. What are we doing to mitigate this AI looming over our head that will take our jobs one day?
Yeah, look, we got to plan for it. We got to, in some cases, we have to embrace it because if we stay on the sideline, then somebody else is going to do it. Mm-hmm. And an example of that we're running in a couple of places in the country, we have some, and it's not AI, but it's embracing technology. So I'll go down this path a little bit with you. 3D printing. And we have in a couple of our training centers have purchased 3D concrete printers that can print, a single family house in, 72 hours or 48 to 72 hours, which is just using the technology of like what you think of with the 3D printer hooked up to concrete. So we are training our members to log into that system, use, the computer system who's going to plan out, the actual concrete, the frame of the house. And then you have people who actually have to feed the machine the concrete, who actually are finishing a little bit of the concrete. So if we don't do that and if we fight it, at some point somebody else comes in and takes it over. So I think we have to be cognizant and aware. We have training funds. We spend hundreds of millions or tens of millions of dollars, if not hundreds of millions of dollars a year on training that we sit down, jointly with labor management that are trying to get ahead of technologies. Think of the way that we, pour concrete today versus the way we did 20 years ago, the way we finish concrete versus 20. All of the building techniques have changed and evolved. And, I still think there's always going to be the need for the use of physical labor, smart laborers who are at the beginning of a job, at the middle of the job, at the end of the job, who are working in concert, hand in hand with our contractor partners, identifying problems, using, their experience, their minds, their skills, their hands, to make a project better. We have to see what that brings, but we're certainly, doing what we can on a training front to stay on top of it, to see if there are technologies that are going to have the potential of replacing our members. And if they are, how do we get ahead of that and stay on that technology so that we're on the front end of the technology, not bitching and complaining, how did somebody else steal our job?
I love the example of the 3D concrete printer. I actually saw a video clip of that a couple of weeks ago, which was, it's fascinating.
Cool, right?
It's insane. Yeah. But obviously you're using less workers and you're getting way more production out of those workers. You're assuming that profit margins for these, businesses are going through the roof that are utilizing this technology. And if the trend continues where, maybe you have a Teamster in a truck that's going with automated, which Sean O'Brien's fighting for right now. Maybe you have, a couple laborers that are finishing what needs to be finished and, figuring these machines out and running these machines the right way. But if that trend continues, do you see a collective bargaining agreement that kind of focuses on maybe 32-hour work weeks as opposed to 40-hour? I mean, I was listening to Bernie Sanders not long ago talk about the 32-hour work week and how that's not like a totally radical idea. What are your thoughts?
Look, I don't think that's a radical idea. I don't think paid sick time for our membership's a radical idea. I don't think, guarantee making sure that our members have health care, is a radical idea. I don't think that after working 20 years of busting your ass out in the field that you have a pension you can retire with is a radical idea. But to get there, we got to build our power. We have to grow our membership. We have to build our strength. Nobody's going to hand that to us, right? The 40-hour work week was literally fought with blood, sweat, and tears that people died for.
Carnegie, right? Andrew Carnegie?
Yeah. Yep. So you look at, what people, the generations before us fought for, we got it pretty easy compared to that. Yeah. So I think our task is to grow our power and to grow our membership so that, then collective bargaining becomes easier for us to go out there and say, not ask our employers for something, but tell them, hey, if you want a skilled, trained, qualified, safe workforce, here's what that price is. And then look, that's something else where we got to shut up and listen. What's important to our members? Mm-hmm. What do they want? How do they, view a successful agreement? Is it, whatever it is, 32 hours, sick time, vacation time, improved benefits, whatever that is, like, that's got to be a two-way conversation with our members, to figure out what's there. And we're trying to do that. We did that last year with this thing. We did it, the Laborers Bill of Rights, and we asked members to send us a video as to, what's important to them from their union. And surprisingly to me, the number one answer we got back was, what the union does for me is health and safety on the job site. And I joined the union and I'm in the union because of health and safety. So add that to the list for collective bargaining, right? We
Hmm.
need to improve health and safety standards on every job site that we have and fight for that. And we can't do it unless we have power. And the way we have power is through numbers and more members. And we got to grow this union. And that's what I'm focused on.
Yeah. Yeah. You would assume that if these businesses are making the profit margins that they would be making, that a 32-hour work week with the same paycheck at the end of the week wouldn't be, a crazy ask, Um, yeah, I'm going through a pretty hectic work week, 3 work weeks. um,
Yeah, I mean, and we shouldn't, our members and you and whoever's here, yeah, a union agreement is great. But you shouldn't have to work 60 or 70 hours to make ends meet.
yeah,
And in a lot of places, that's what it's taken because, for whatever reason. And our existence shouldn't be based on 20 hours a week of overtime. We should be able to be firmly entrenched in the middle class, working 40 hours a week, going out there with a jackhammer or pouring concrete, laying a pipeline, doping a pipe, whatever job task that you're doing, you know, it's hard work. And you shouldn't, have to not only bust your ass all day, every day, but you shouldn't have to also then work another 10 hours, 12 hours on Saturday, another 10, 12 hours on Sunday. But again, we have to accumulate, we have to grow our power, we have to grow our membership, we have to have more signatory contractors. If and when we do that, then we're going to, in the places where we've done that, we've proven that our negotiations, our collective bargaining, our agreements, are good, they're better, they're stronger. And we've just got to be able to repeat that in areas that we've already done that.
yeah, you said it, man. Like a 60-hour work week is about what feels comfortable at the end of the week, and I think it's inflation. I don't think it's labor's. I think that's across the board. Any person who's working in the middle class probably feels the same way. And you also talk about the work zone safety. I posted a video, and there was some guy, like I was in a I was on a state highway, and we had this like just monster setup. It was a double lane shift. We're digging for, they were drilling, so they're digging, and there's guys all over the place. There's cops, there's crash trucks, there's cones everywhere. And right down the street, maybe a half mile down the road, there's this old man smoking a cigarette in a mini excavator, digging for gas at a just like some building going up. He's looking for gas, and I took a video and just said, this is union versus non-union. And the backlash I received was insane. Like I never expected. I didn't even think anyone would really look at it. I didn't think nothing of the video, but I got a lot of backlash, and there was like crazy like hate towards unions. And it seems like now more than ever, with this AI coming in, with the inflation, with all these things we've been talking about, that unions are more important now than they've maybe ever been in my whole life. Like since I've been in a union, for sure. And you go to, you talk about, Democrat versus Republican, and like, a lot of people, me included, before I started this podcast and was really able to talk to some people and really learn some stuff and read some literature. Like a lot of people think, union means Democrat and non-union is, Republican. And it's simply just not the case. You look at a place like California with Newsom at the helm, and the Southern California District Council of Laborers, that like their leadership, they can't stand it out there. And that is like a heavy, like far left progressive liberal state. And they're like begging for balance. So yeah, man, I mean, now it seems like is a really good time for people to really come together. And like, what better way for people to come together than to form a union so that your voice can be heard a little bit better.
Look, man, every polling you see, especially with young people, like the union's popularity has gone through the roof, right? And part of that, I think, is COVID and how people were treated during COVID, that it was just like, shut up and go to work. And if you had a union, you had someone there that was fighting for your health and safety and your standards and clean work sites and clean bathrooms. And if you didn't, you were told to shut up and go to work. So I think that had something to do with it. There's been some pretty high profile organizing drives, some successful, some not, but that story's getting out there, and people are talking about it. So, and when you have a laborer, who is working full time, they go home and they talk to their buddies about it. I got a good job. I make $45 an hour. I make 48, but whatever the rate is. I bought my new truck. When you got kids playing baseball or softball, or you get to know the people in your community and your family, and our best organizers are rank and file members who are killing it, right? Who are working well, who have a good job, who live in a middle class neighborhood, who are driving maybe a new pickup truck or a new car. Like that's what we're all about, and that's who we are. And we've got to communicate that story. We have to tell that story, and take away that, negative connotation, like you just said, of union and what it stands for. You know what we stand for? We stand for building our communities. That's that Laborers Rising program that we've created to get members involved with their local union, to volunteer, not only show up at your local union meeting or go to your local union picnic, but show up in your community, show up in your neighborhood, go build that structure, volunteer your skill set, and do it to give back and to build community. And by doing that, we're getting people to be like, you know what, these guys are pretty cool. They're pretty good. They're kind of badass. They've got, a real skill set that they can, fix anything around the house. They can fix things in the community. Like that's the type of things that, we're trying to cultivate and grow here. And because we've been doing it forever, we just haven't done a very good job of telling that story. And I'm really focused on, going out there and meeting the members and telling their stories about what they do and how they do, and build on that public sentiment that, hey, you need some help, go join a union. And this generation coming up now, are really, in favor of and pro union, and we've got to grab on that and use that as an organizing tool to grow this union.
Yeah, and you could see just the power when you have the union behind you. Like you can see, you look at an organizer like Rob Rodriguez out of the Northeast region, who he was like he led the charge for Mikey Sherrill, the governorial candidate, the Democratic governorial candidate in New Jersey. And they crushed it. Like they crushed it. I think he said they knocked on like 19,000 doors in 7 days, which is insane.
Right.
You look at a guy like Randy Brolo, who's also a member of the Northeast region, he was an organizer with the Northeast region. And he worked his way from school board to Burlington County Commissioner. I mean, he alone had one of the monster non-union contractors that are in New Jersey that are really trying to, sink their teeth in New Jersey. And he almost made them, sit at the table just by putting a PLA on a big project that I'm actually currently on right now. And you see these examples, and it's like, man, like if people would just get involved, like members would just get involved. And I think it's a little ambiguous what get involved means, but like you said, you just get involved. Run for school board. I'm running for school board this year. Flounder Caruso, he's the host of Tuna Blue 2. He's running for town council. Like we're seeing how to kind of get involved and how to sink your teeth into like the politics of it and how you can really help, the laborers. And it's like, I had like this crazy idea, like I can see recruiting 21 members in 21 counties to just get involved. And if you have like those kind of numbers, even if you just started like South Jersey, just local 172 territory, I don't know if we have like 10 or 11 counties, but just start like that, like 10 laborers in 10 counties and just get them in a position somewhere in each county. Like that is a ton of power. And it seems like you could almost write a blueprint to make something like that happen. Is that something that you've looked into doing, is like actively recruiting members to do stuff like that?
Well, let me go back. Did you just say you're running? What are you running for?
School board. Hamilton.
Yeah. Like that's what we need. When I talk about Laborers Rising and getting members involved, like that's what you just described is exactly what we have to do. Even if you lose that race, we're going to make sure you don't. But let's say that you don't, that you lose that race, or someone that loses that race. That means we had another candidate with an orange card in their pocket at every town hall, at every political event, talking about working people's issues, talking about what it's like being a laborer, busting their ass out in the field, having real conversations with people. So it's not, no offense to attorneys or big business, but those are the people who tend to fill the ranks on both sides. as to who's going to be running for something. So having you or your co-host or any rank and file member that says, step up, I want to volunteer, I want to be a part of public service, I want to go to school board because here's what's important to me, that's huge. And yeah, there's Jersey is a great example. I know the state Fed has a program about recruiting and educating and training candidates. I was just at the Texas AFL-CIO convention last week. They have a symposium or a seminar middle of September, recruiting union members to run for office, educating, informing them. Here's what you do, here's how you do it. That's how we bring labor to the discussion in any political race. And that's what's important from, as an organization, me personally, having someone up there talking about working people's issues, talking about blue collar issues, talking about union issues, like that's power and growing power and building power. That's huge. And we got to talk about that. And, we talk about communicating. Yeah, every single laborer that's running for public office needs to be blasted all over social media. And you need to feel that power of 530,000 brothers and sisters behind you saying, I got your back. How can I help you? Can I go knock on a door for you? Can I send a postcard? Can I give you $5 for your campaign? Whatever it is, that's important. So yeah, you got me a little bit, riled up here because that's
Cool.
great that you're doing it. And we need more. Like you said, if you had 10 laborers in 10 counties, great. Let's start there. Let's have everywhere it makes sense, have, labor at least or somebody in organized labor. I would love it to be a laborer, to go out there and throw their name in the hat and say, I want to give back. And I don't care if you run as a Democrat. I don't care if you run as a Republican. I care that, you're running as a laborer and you're going to be representing working people and working people's voices and have those values, bring that to the race and talk about working people's issues at every opportunity you get. How can we lose if we're doing that?
Yep, exactly. So we talked about helping, the apprentices, younger people. Right now, we're in a bit of a housing crisis, right? The cost for houses are up and the interest rate is up, and on basically any middle class scale, purchasing a home right now seems to be like impossible. I'm fortunate enough to own a home right now. I got in when the interest rate was low, fortunately. What can be done, if anything, to help our younger members buy a house? I mean, we used to have, I think we used to have mortgages through the locals with low interest rates. Is that something we could do for first time homeowners again? Is that on the table?
There's a couple of different programs that I think still exist out there, and like Union Plus, Union Privilege, those types of things that are there. I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to pretend to be. And point you to a specific program. I will agree with you. There's a problem out there, and we do have, affordable housing shortages. Just about every city I go in North America, there's a housing crisis, a housing shortage. The solution to that, and a lot of big cities try this, is to cut construction workers' wages to try to build affordable housing. Is ass backwards to me. The people who are building the houses have to be able to afford to live in them. And the developers, the contractors, the owners, the cities, they've got to all buy into that concept. It's not going to raise the cost of housing. It might cut into the profits of the developer, but the developer, instead of making 28%, can make 18% and give that other 10% to its workforce. That's how we solve a housing crisis. Let's let everybody knows what we make. Let's see what the developer makes. Our rates are published in a book. Let's go see what everybody else is making as we're talking about building these things. And I think that's a potential solution. Look, I think with everything, and you're going to hear me say this over and over again, with power comes opportunity. With more members comes more buying power. With a greater market share of strength in a city or a town or a county or a local union jurisdiction, it's going to allow us to go into City Hall or into the governor's mansion and demand things for us. And places, again, where we have that, we're able to do that. And everywhere else, we're working towards that through organizing and trying to grow the union.
So what do we do with the states like Virginia, the states like Texas, these like minimum wage states that like the union is like just far from eyesight? Like how do how do we bring organization to states like that?
Yeah, so Texas is the prime example, and that's why I think I've been to Texas 3 or 4 times already this year. We had a big organizing conference down in Austin at the end of May. I brought 400 organizers from across North America and into Austin for a couple of days, and not to sit in a lecture hall or in a convention hall. We put 400 organizers on the street to go talk to workers in Austin, Texas, to let them know. And a lot of them in Texas don't even know what a union is. Some of them think that unions are illegal in Texas. It's education, it's information, it's going out there, getting out of our damn truck and talking to workers. We have 32 organizers in our Midwest region. Our Midwest region covers 10 states from Texas up to Iowa, and everywhere in between. And they in Texas and Midwest region have started to not started in the last 18 months. Every one of those 32 organizers have spent some time down in Texas, to see what's happening on the ground, to go out there and make contacts not only with workers, but with contractors, owners, and developers. 30, 40 years ago, Texas was a strong union state. Um, and it shifted over time, right to work laws, big business and corporations, doing everything they could to chip away and take away workers' rights, workers' safety protections, and find alternatives that people started working non-union down there. The solution to that is going out there and being present, telling people who we are, and what we're doing, taking some of those resources from the north and moving them down to the south to try to build and grow. We put out a goal of doubling our membership. We can't double our membership if we just continue to ignore places like Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, in the South. So we are, really focusing our efforts on Texas right now through the Midwest region, through their organizing committee, getting bodies, experienced organizers who've had success in some of those Midwestern and upper Midwestern states down into Texas. Quite frankly, there's a lot of contractors that if you drove down there, you'd probably see some Philly and South Jersey contractors who set up an office in Texas. Let's make sure that we're talking to both offices and understand here's the value we bring to you in South Jersey. Give me a chance to show you some value in San Antonio or Houston or Dallas or Austin or wherever. So it's a concerted effort. It takes time. It takes resources. It took us 30, 40 years to go from high market share to low market share. So it's going to take, that same amount of time, hopefully sooner, to go from, where we're at to where we were. But it's going to be incremental. It's going to be power building. It's going to be communicating with workers, communicating with members, and treating non-union members as future members, not as non-union construction workers, and bringing them in and telling them that they have a voice and a family here at LiUNA. And it's going to take some time, but we're committed to it.
Do you focus on putting, organizing, getting politicians in place that would help facilitate that in states like Texas?
Yeah, look, I think organizing, this year was our second annual organizing conference. The first annual organizing conference, we have 9 regions. We have 10 or 11 different, what we call ROCs, regional organizing coalition, or regional organizing committees. Every one of them have a different definition of what organizing is. Some of it is political. Some of it is ballot measures, that we're using funds to, mandate project labor agreements in Southern California. That was a huge organizing campaign. Some of it's bottom up organizing and going out there and talking to workers, getting them to sign cards, going to the NLRB and then negotiating an agreement. So I think organizing is defined a whole bunch of different ways. Talking to and bringing, grassroots politicians and rank and file members like yourself to the table and urging and helping and getting you to run for office. That's absolutely organizing. Because if you get on a school board, or if you get on a city council or a zoning board or whatever it may be, to then share those values that you have as a laborer to whatever elected official you got, and to make sure that, the entity in which you're serving is serving its constituents and the people through whether it's project labor agreements, registered apprenticeship, middle class wages, make sure that the workers have health care and pensions. Those are all forms of organizing that can be very effective. So I think that was a very long-winded answer of saying, yeah, man, it can be, we can use organizing for politicians. Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess I was just trying to figure out what the I don't know, the path of least resistance would be to organizing a state like that? And I think you answered it pretty clearly. There really is no path of least resistance.
No, there's not,
Yeah,
man. Texas is tough.
yeah.
Some of these southern states are tough I mean, just the rules are stacked. Right to work was born in Texas. It wasn't to make sure that workers had the right to, decide whether they want to be a union or not. It was to exploit workers and to make sure that that the power was shifted from the workers to the corporations. And Texas was reorganized from a union state decades ago to a non-union state today. And now the onus and the job for us is to reorganize it back to becoming a union state. And that's going to be politicians. That's going to be bottom up organizing. That's going to be top down organizing. That's going to be anything and everything in between. And it's a long road ahead, but we're committed to it.
Cool. So you talk about the right to work states. Sean O'Brien recently was talking about how he supports right to work states. Now the general president of a union saying something like that kind of took everyone aback, among other things. Can you make that make sense?
No,
Okay.
I can't. I don't see where right to work makes sense. I think it's, a power. Like I said, I think right to work laws, if you go back and look at the history and how right to work was created and where it started from, it pitted one group of workers against another. It was African Americans and immigrants and white workers. The powers that be tried to, force them, to think that the other one was the enemy. It was shifting power, from workers to corporations. It was taking power away from unions, and giving it back to the employer. So I can't make sense of why anyone in the organized labor or in the union movement would argue that right to work is a good thing. I think it's the opposite. I think it's destroyed the middle class in places. Look at the wages. Look at the wages, man, of a right to work state versus a non-right to work state. The economics tell you everything you need to know. And I would not make an argument that right to work makes sense because I look at numbers, balls are balls, and strikes are strikes. Right to work ain't good for any of our members.
Yeah, you mentioned pitting workers against workers, union against non-union, white against black, whatever it may be, and you got guys making, I don't know, whatever, $5 an hour less than the other guy, like mad at them, and it's almost like they should both be looking up, not at each other, right? Like it's like this game that we're all kind of a part of, where they have our attention on each other rather than up top, where it should be, and You're talking about like billion-dollar industries and guys making, barely a livable wage. And it's like, how is it that they've been able to like pit the workers against each other rather than against the top of the chain, the food chain?
It's a concerted plan, right? And they've been successful doing it, and we've fallen for it, and we've allowed them to distract us, and we've allowed, and in today's media, there's a distraction. If you want to be distracted, you can do it real quick. Grab your cell phone, turn on the TV. Every 30 seconds, there's breaking news, and none of it is really breaking news, and it's just a way to distract us. So, I think that's where we got to get back to our roots, and we got to get back to. I think we have to, internally organize this union. We have to reorganize this union to make sure that our members are engaged, involved, part of the union. The more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And that's a cliche, but it's also real. And when you, show up and attend and do things for your local union is going to show up and attend and do things for you and your family. And the more we can, get our members involved in doing that, the better off we're going to be. Right to work. Look, I'll take it to a different step of prevailing wages, right? Davis-Bacon prevailing wages. Those aren't union only rates. A non-union worker gets the benefit of your hard work and what you've done, in South Jersey through a collective bargaining agreement, so that even if a non-union contractor gets on a federal project in South Jersey, they're making the same as you. So because we've built power in South Jersey and had a collective bargaining agreement that places you in the middle class, that you can afford to buy your own home and, raise your family and do the things that you're doing, that non-union worker, if they get on a federally funded project in Jersey, gets the benefits that you fought for and the generations before you have fought for. So we shouldn't be pitting workers against workers. We should be, all of us collectively looking at how do we, grow this union? How do we, understand and realize who the real enemy is? And that's why I don't call and criticize, non-union laborers. They're
Mm-hmm.
future members.
Yep.
There's 1.5 million non-union laborers in this country. They're all better off because of the collective bargaining agreements we have, because in the places where they're working, assuming that there's a union in that town, has raised that cost or, that level of their wages, of their benefits, of their fringes that they've benefited from, whether they know it or not. And we've got to tell them. And that's what we're trying to do with communicating as much as we can.
Yeah, good points. All right. Well, I'm not going to hold you for too much longer, but I do have a segment that, I ask everyone, I'll ask you, what is the dumbest thing you've seen this week?
Can I give you two answers?
You may.
All right. Well, I'll give you one political answer. Having, Republicans in the Senate cutting construction jobs to fund billionaire tax credits is pretty dumb. And getting rid of, our jobs, our members, what they're doing. That's the dumbest thing I've seen this week from a work standpoint. Now I'll give you a personal one.
Yeah.
I got an 18-year-old daughter, and I was home this morning. She was walking up the stairs carrying bags of clothes that she bought yesterday. She's going to school next year, so she was getting ready to go to school. I hear this horrific noise. I'm in the kitchen. She's walking up the stairs, and I hear this loud noise. She clearly fell. Everything dropped. It was loud. I wait to, am I going to hear crying? Am I going to hear call an ambulance? Luckily, I heard laughter. So I did what any responsible father does. I went and I grabbed my cell phone and I go running towards her so that I could take pictures or videos of her falling down the steps. Now I got a dog and I got a dog gate. So in order to get from my kitchen to my steps, I got to cross the dog gate. And in my excitement of getting to her, I step over the dog gate, fall flat on my face, trip over the dog gate. And now my son comes over, running over with his phone to take a picture of me laying on the floor because now I'm laughing harder than my daughter is. So that's my two stories. I got one political. The Senate Republicans are dumb for killing our jobs. And I'm pretty dumb for trying to make fun of my daughter for falling down the steps.
Well, don't feel, I'm my own dumb thing of the week quite often too. So yeah. Brent, man, thank you so much for your accessibility. Thank you for agreeing to come on here, carving out some time for me. It was great talking to you. Really insightful, and I hope we could do it again sometime.
Hey, I'd love to. And look, man, you started this conversation talking about how we're communicating, right? And we are trying to change that up. We're trying to add things and do things like this show, but. Whatever good I've done, I'm just trying to catch up to you and what you're doing. I really appreciate you putting yourself out there, talking to people about issues, that matter to your fellow laborers, running for public office. That's amazing. So I appreciate the compliment, but literally my hat's off to you. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for what you're doing, and whatever we can do to help you, let me know, man.
Cool, man. Thank you very much.
All right, Stephen. Take care, man.
All right, you too. Yep. See you.